Shalom, shalom, Israel. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. If I can get a one in the chat, if y'all can hear me all right. Make sure y'all can hear me all right. The water, the water. All right. We got Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started out of 1 West 125th Street out of Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite or Christian group. I want to say Yahweh Shem Yahshabarakatah to the brothers. Salaki, Yahweh Shem Yahshabakatham to the brothers. Yahweh Shemor Alathan by Shem Yahushua to the sisters. Tonight is the history class. And as you all can tell by the title, we're going to get into uh, how our families have been destroyed under this wicked oppressor. Khan, Officer Yagadar in the building. Yahweh Shem Yahshabakathah. We're gonna get into how the oppressor has destroyed our families. Now we have another study that we're gonna get into, or more of an article actually we're gonna get into. That's coming out of where is it? Coming out of the Northwestern Journal of Law and Social Policy. This was published in 2006. The title is Federally Mandated Destruction of the Black Family. The Adoption and Safe Families. That is the entire title of this article, and we are going to get into that. Before we get into it, y'all know I love the participation, and I appreciate y'all for it. But before we get into it, who has some examples of some things that have happened historically from this oppressor that has destroyed and affected um, our families and our family units? Who can give me a couple examples of some things that have happened historically that have affected our families, our communities, but specifically our families? Child support. Con, absolutely. Child support. Child support has affected our families. Mothers and fathers break up. Mothers and fathers break up. Sisters go file child support. And child support is an absolute burden financially on most brothers. I knew a brother, I won't get too far into the details. I knew a brother that I want to say he might have been making a couple $1,000s a month. They hit him with $800 a month in child support. And he was still supposed to take care of himself and his other family and all of that. And it just completely destroyed that family. And what was worse with their situation, because UPK tell people all the time, keep courts out your business. And the thing is, we should be adult enough. Everybody was adult enough to lay down, right? We should be adult enough, even though we're not getting along. We should be adult enough and mature enough to understand that we need to come together to figure out how we're going to take care of this child. And the brother, he ain't even in the truth, but he attempted to do that. And they kind of came to an understanding on the court day. They're in the lobby of the courtroom. They came to an understanding. They came to a dollar amount. They said we're good. And this is a great example of how this oppressor destroys our people. They came to an understanding. They came to an amount. Everybody stacked hands. They go into court. They tell the judge, hey, we're good, actually. We worked this out in the hallway. We don't need to do this. The judge said, too late. You're here, and I'm going to give a judgment. And when he or she, I don't know whether it was male or female judge, when they gave the judgment, it was more than twice what they had agreed on. But these are the type of things that happen in our communities, and it destroys us. Child support is a great example. TANF. TANF, now somebody correct me if I'm wrong. TANF, I believe, is a I guess you could call it a program, but it's essentially a program where Um, a single mother can apply for benefits as long as she names a father. I don't even think she has to prove it. As long as she names a father, um, and whoever she names essentially has to kind of reimburse the government for whatever benefits that she receives. Is that right? If somebody can just tell me kind of if that is correct. I think that's the understanding that I have of it. I'm not sure if that's accurate. Let's see what else we got. Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, the water, correct for most welfare support. Okay, all right. Con, pushing drugs into our community. Absolutely. Drugs came into our community and completely destroyed them. Um, that was, and we all know, obviously, Raj did a class not too long ago where it's documented that it was essentially a plan to allow drugs to be pushed into the predominantly Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian communities. That was very purposeful. If it was an agreement essentially between the U.S. government, I believe, and the cartels, because they wanted to work with the cartels to who were they trying to murder? Slovakia, unalive. Who were they trying to get? I want to say it might have been Castro. Not 100% sure, but that definitely happened, where it was part of an overall plot and a plan to allow these drugs to go into the Black communities in exchange for something that the government wanted. And obviously, once you push these things into the communities of a people who are already oppressed, um, I've heard it said that. Slovakia, I've heard it said that. Oppression is the what is the mother of vices. I think it's how it was phrased. But essentially, the whole thing is, our people are so beaten down and destroyed that then you provide this substance that can allow them to check out mentally from reality. That's something that is easily picked up. And again, it was provided very purposefully, and it was a concerted effort to do so. So that's another great example. So what else we got here? Welfare to mothers in return for kicking out the fathers. Exactly. So there was a time when, with welfare, there were home visits where you could not have a man in the home. If they came and found a man living in the home, then you no longer received your benefits. I saw something on Facebook the other day where it was a sister that said, how did she phrase? I'm paraphrasing, but she said something along the lines of, um, how did she phrase that thing? She said something like, "We allowed the government, and it was a Black woman, it was a sister. We, meaning Black women, allowed the government to that's what it was, to tell our men or us, what I mean, from my perspective, that they absolutely didn't need us by providing everything that we were traditionally providing at that time." Um, And then she went on to say that, and so the government essentially became the fathers of the Black household because they uh, purposefully prevented the Black man from being there, Hispanic man from being there. And so then all these services and benefits and all these things are provided. And then she said, and at the end of the day, the father wants his child back, which is why um, the prison pipeline system exists. Khan Khan, Ecclesiastes 7:7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Khan, the water, sir. A gift destroyeth the heart, and oppression makes a wise man mad. That's exactly why, once those drugs started infiltrating our communities, it became easy for us to get addicted to them because we are completely beaten down, destroyed, and that those so-called gifts meaning welfare programs and all these crumbs that they provide us that destroys our hearts and it destroys our families, destroyed and continues to destroy. Let's see what else we got. Let's see, welfare, kicking the father out, right? Feminism, the creation of the strong black woman. Khan, give that brother an absolute hand. Our sisters were completely bamboozled. They completely fooled, tricked, absolutely confused by that feminist movement. Our sisters are the primary voice of dang ish. Our sisters are the primary voice of I can't find a man. I don't need a man. I can do everything a man can do. All of that. Our sisters are the primary perpetrators of those messages. These other cultures aren't doing that. These other cultures aren't doing that. Again, I tell folks all the time. Listen, Donald Trump said you can grab him by the box. Donald Trump gave no concern for how he approached women and how he probably continues to do so. And most of those white women went in that booth and voted for him because they completely understand that while that's the case and he's talking this trash, and mind you, they had a white woman they could have voted for. They could have voted for that white woman and said, oh, we all sisters and we can do anything men can do. They didn't do any of that. They did none of that. They said, we're going to get this man in office, our man who is our protector and is supposed to be, one that we are subject subject to and submissive to. Yeah, we're going to go vote for him with all the trash that he talked about, everything that he would do to a woman. So, yeah, our oppressors women don't do that. Most other cultures, particularly in this country, they don't do that. Even Kat brought it out. I think it might have been last week or the week before. The language barrier is largely why our Hispanic brothers and sisters don't deal with that because that feminist movement is something that is rooted here and completely taken on and accepted by the majority of our sisters, and it's definitely part of what destroys our families. All right, what else we got? Pushing learning disabilities on our black men to set them dependent on drugs. Absolutely. Absolutely. These learning disabilities, when our young brothers are out here, these our young men, our babies, he can't sit down straight and he can't concentrate and he can't do this and he can't do that. It's all part of a setup to start a narrative that they can then get a certain label put on them, and now we have to get these drugs put on him, and now he's the 5-year-old boy is walking around like a zombie in kindergarten. And then they want to say, well, I don't understand what the problem is, because again, they're pushing these drugs on our children. It's taken a step up from now just the communities, the adults. Now they're starting in elementary school, and we have to be very mindful of those things when we're going into these school systems with our children, because they are not on our side. These are not, this is not our communities that are pushing these things. We're not in our school systems aren't run by us. Our school systems are run by the oppressor, and so we definitely have to be mindful of that. Uh, let me see what else we got. Um, Temporary system. That's correct. Temporary system. Yeah, okay. Kind, the water. Um, all this push the supply and demand for orphanage and foster care and group homes. My rib is reading my mind or something because that's exactly what we're about to get into, some foster care and orphanage realities that have completely hit our culture and our communities very, very hard. Chupa Kazak in the building. Shalom Yabashana Shabakata. I believe that's Officer Uriah. Shalom Yabashana Shabakata. And we got Sister Tawana in the building. Yahweh Shamar Alathan by Shem Yahushua sis. All right. Right. Khan Khan, there are no strong Asian women. You are absolutely right, sir. That does not happen in the Asian community. There are no quote unquote strong women in the Asian community. Those women completely listen to what their man says. Completely. You can see the vibe anytime you have any kind of rough interaction with him. If they're together, he is definitely the head of his woman. Absolutely. Let's see. There's no such thing as a strong white woman. Absolutely. That does not exist. You don't hear the typical white woman. The only time you hear the only time you hear white women typically walking around talking about how she's strong and independent is when somebody give it to me. There's a particular uh that's all I'm gonna say. Let me see if y'all can get it. There happens occasionally, but it only happens when a certain thing happens, when a certain set of circumstances present themselves, that you hear white women walk around talking about they strong and independent. Let's see. Khan Khan, yes, our pressures want to get all our young brothers on behavior medicine. Absolutely. That is the beginning of the drug addiction. That is the beginning of the drug addiction. And they want to start as early as possible for our young men. And that's why we have to be as mindful as we absolutely can. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes, medication is needed for a variance of conditions, but we have to be mindful that we do not allow our children to be put on it unnecessarily. Um, it damages their growth, absolutely. ADHD and Ritalin, absolutely. Kind on what kind. Um, let's see. Feminism push women. Hold on. When she is in Karen mode, when she feels like Karen, not quite, not quite. I mean, I'm not gonna say not quite. That's not a wrong answer. Absolutely not. But let me see. Khan. They say the kids are hyperactive. Khan. Listen, we went through that with my daughter. My daughter was in what was it, kindergarten. She was in kindergarten, and her teacher was a sister. We actually requested this teacher because she did so well with our son. And my son is always laid back. He's super cool. My daughter is the opposite. She's the one with all the energy. And so it didn't take long before we realized, oh, we thought you were a great teacher. And what it is you just want the kids to just sit down. Well, my daughter is 5 years old and she has all the energy in the world. And we had to battle with that lady. And it was extremely sad because she was a sister. But these are just the realities because I don't know if it was her, the system, I don't know what it is, but we had to be very, very mindful and very, very diligent in how we handled that because you could tell the sister was not on our side. Uh, Khan, the water, sir. Absolutely. You better battle. Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, all right. I wasn't thinking about that one. Also, y'all can say when they the LGBT 1, 2, 3 and they flex their muscles. That is true. When they go into that space, they want to turn into independent women. They almost think they men. Absolutely, I cannot disagree with that at all. You are correct. I was actually thinking when they grow up around sisters. That was what I was thinking. If you get a white girl who for whatever reason grew up in the hood, oh, she gonna have all of that tongue outwardly anyway. Outwardly, she gonna talk that. I still don't think she fully believes it, but yes, she will definitely do that. They push those meds and drugs on kids or other race of people. Right? They don't do that with those other folks. They absolutely do not. They absolutely do not. They push it on our children in a disproportionate way, and it's all. I think it's a combination of wanting to label them and like I want to say it to get them on these drugs. Let's see. All right, all right. Well, let's get into some of this article, right? So So another question though, when well no, I kind of asked that question. One thing nobody said, because that's fine. We were talking about everything that was coming up is more recent stuff, and that's absolutely fine. So like, and when they become adults, they use it against them to justify any behavior, right? Because then once it's on their record, now we got a record of them having behavioral issues and having a need for medication and so on and so forth. So now it becomes the catalyst for how they're treated as adults, right? Absolutely. Um, One thing that we didn't, that was not said here, which is fine, is slavery. Slavery completely broke up our family. Um, Slavery destroyed our family units. But as we're going to get into some of this, um, in some ways, we were better off then. Um, Let me rephrase it. Our children were better off then than they are now. But we're going to get into it a little bit, right? Okay, it says, although the institution of slavery, and it kind of starts back and it's going to walk forward, right? It said, although the institution of slavery dismantled black families, it also fostered a unique system that maintained and cared for black children who were separated from their biological parents. How is that? How does that make sense? Can anybody tell me? I'm going to read it one more time. It says, although the institution of slavery dismantled black families, it also fostered a unique system that maintained and cared for black children who were separated from their biological parents. Who can tell me how that's possible? All right, let me see here. Systematically abused men in front of women to cause women to feel they couldn't need men and rape women. All right. Let me know. Is this enough? So they were, I think you mean devalued in a man's eye as dirty. Are we okay? So my question is, are you answering my last question, or is this another example of how they destroyed, uh, how oppressor destroyed our families? Because I can see that as an example of how another way that they destroyed our family. That's absolutely right. Um, okay, come, come, type it slow, no sweat. All right, Officer Yagadar says without the parents, they would rely more on an oppressor for guidance. Um, no, la, not quite, not quite, not quite. Who else want to give it a shot? I'm gonna read it one more time. It says, although the institution of slavery dismantled black families, it also fostered a unique system that maintained and cared for black children who were separated from their biological parents. Think about, all right, think about the time frame that we're in, right? We're in slavery, there's plantations, and women, you know, brothers are marrying women, they're having children, and then the oppressor at some point is taking those children and selling them off. Where do they go? Give the sister Tawana a hand. The village started raising the kids. So when those children were sold off and ripped from their parents, they went to another plantation. They went to another house, home, whatever, farm where there was slaves. And those slaves allowed, they saw this baby child or whatever come in, and they said, no problem, we'll look out for it. That's unity. That's us being connected and combined and together against a common enemy, right? It makes perfect sense, but it sounds backwards when you first read it. But that's us sticking together and looking out for each other. Shalom, you have Shema Thumba Shema Shas. It's the nine of building. Right, but that's exactly what happens. Because it goes on, it says, Khan takes a village, exactly. It says, when children were stripped from their parents and sold away to other plantations, the slave community as a whole took on the responsibility of ensuring these children were cared for. Now, imagine that in contrast to what we have today. I mean, we all know, well, not all of us. I don't know how old everybody is. But there was a time, there was a time that, your neighbor from down the street, she might not, put her hands on you, but she gonna check you, you know, and then she gonna take you to your parents so they can get the rest of it done. Um, there was a time that we were united as a community, looked out for each other. Um, again, where is it? Zephaniah 2:1. Zephaniah 2:1 says, "Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired." There was a time when we were gathered together as a nation, when we had a certain sense of unity and community as a nation, um, and 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 of course that was before what? Somebody tell me. Now to take a family member's child, courts have to be right. Be the sister at hand. Now, in order to take on a family member's child, you got to go through the court system. You got to go through the court system, and we're going to get into some of that too. But when was that primarily? I mean, it. There you go. Sister Tomana is on it tonight. That was before integration. When we were segregated, when we had to be by ourselves, we carried that same mentality out of slavery. Sister Nas on it. Give her a hand. We carried that same mentality out of slavery and into our communities. No problem. We're going to stick together because we know, even though we're not technically in captivity and in slavery anymore, we still got a common enemy, and we need to look out for ourselves. We need to look out for each other. That's the spirit that we're supposed to have today. And that's the spirit that we have in the ISUPK. All right. It says after emancipation from slavery, the ratification of the 13th Amendment and the ratification of the 13th Amendment, black children were not welcomed into into the formal child welfare system because, again, although we were uh, so-called emancipated, I mean, there's always going to be orphans for whatever reason, right? But we're going to see how it started out with orphan issues and then came into um, affecting the dynamics of actual families where there weren't any orphans. All right. Um, Says they were excluded from late 19th century orphanages established to rescue destitute immigrant children. So what that means is, so there were orphanages set up. They just weren't for us. They were for immigrant children, which means what? Who were they really for? Who are these so-called orphanages really for? Who are these immigrants that they're talking about? Who gonna give it a shot? All right, another nation. That's true. That's true. Um, okay. Obviously, y'all got one of them. Yeah, Irish people. Yeah, there's some more though. Just to knock the other nations. That's not wrong. Um, but uh, at this time, what was going on around this time, relatively shortly after slavery, Emancipation Proclamation, and all that, these immigrants um, they were Irish and some other things. Who can just somebody give me one or two more? Who gonna give it a shot? Okay, there we go. We got two great answers. Any child that looked like them, I'm assuming that by the them you mean Edomite children. Sister Tawana said, "Y'all absolutely right. Give my rib and Sister Tawana a hand." These were talking about so-called Edomites, Europeans, because that's who was predominantly migrating over at that point. That's along the times where I think the Statue of Liberty came up and give us Shapur and downtrodden and all this mess. And all they were really talking about was Europeans. They only wanted that when it was European. It's so funny how I was I was on my job on my slavery talking years ago around the time that I think Trump was running for president. And I'm talking to these Edomites, and they're like, all these immigrants, and this is terrible, and so on and so forth, and they're taking our jobs, and so on and so forth, right? And I'm just sitting there staring at them. And they were like, what? I said, so tell me exactly when being an immigrant was so wrong in this country. Because, and I just stared at them like, all y'all immigrants, what are you talking about? So they didn't want to have much conversation with me after that. But it's so interesting how they can have such a problem with so-called immigrants when they come from anywhere other than Europe. It's essentially it. As long as they come from Europe and they look like them, they ain't got a problem with it. They don't have a problem with it at all. But if you are from anywhere south of America, which is outside of being in America, where a lot of predominantly uh, the 12 tribes of Israel are focused, oh, they don't want you up here, just like they don't want us up here until they want us up here. It's the craziest mess in the world. But that's who they are. As long as you were eating my children, then yeah, we got some services for you and all that. But at the time, no, not for us, right? Not surprising either. All right, it says there's furthermore Jim Crow laws prevented a lot of institutions from allowing anything other than whites to be placed in orphanages or adoptive homes. Because even after such discriminatory laws were dismantled, black children were still denied access from most formal child welfare institutions. Uh, See if y'all can guess this one. Why were so okay? We have these uh, orphanages set up, right? But we know they're predominantly for Esau. So then Jim Crow, the civil rights movement comes along. They dismantle those laws, but now they still, black children are still denied access. Why? And it's not just because they were black. I want to give y'all that. I mean, it is, but it's not. You got an orphanage. You got a bunch of children. You want them theoretically to be adopted out. What would keep them from allowing black children into these orphanages? Who can tell me? We're gonna give it a shot. Segregation, this is after segregation now. Who's gonna give me something? So again, I'm gonna surmise it for you. You got these, you got all these orphanages. They're primarily for Esau. Not even primarily. They're for Esau. So they're not allowing black children in there. Then they just do away with the segregation laws. They're still not really allowing black children in there. Think think about it like a business decision. If you're running an orphanage that's primarily meant for Esau, that was meant for Esau initially, give the sister a hand. They're not wanting black children to be adopted to white families, or white families not wanting black children. I mean, these are Esau's orphanages. You have white families coming in, right there. You go, get a sister a hand. Nobody wants to adopt them. Absolutely, this is Esau's orphanage. Then you're gonna have a bunch of black kids in there, and they're just gonna stay there. That's not good for business. Not good for business. Absolutely right. All right. So let's keep going. It says black people were forced to rely on other resources such as extended family. Again, we took that out of slavery still, and churches to take care of children whose parents were unable to meet their needs. Now, this is a time, and I think we all understand. This is a time where the black church was not what it is today. I mean, it still wasn't the truth, but it was closer. It was so much closer than what it is today. There was a time where the black church was kind of the backbone of the community, particularly when we were still segregated. The black church was the backbone of the community. The black church did look out um, for a lot of the community, but it was also understood that we had a common enemy, and that you know the Most High, even in our ignorance of what the Most High wanted us to do, was, our power. Now it's turned into something obviously completely disgusting. But it was closer to what the truth was at a time. And so back then, our extended families in the church was where our children who were orphaned, um, the only place our children who were orphaned were able to get some support. It says it was not until the late 20th century that the child welfare system allowed blacks to participate in services that had long been reserved for the white community. So now we are in integration. And that last sentence sounds really good because, there were a lot of systems and support that only white people could take advantage of, and our people couldn't. So now we had to do some other things and so on and so forth. And now we got access, and it sounds like it's going to be beneficial. But our oppressor is a diabolical beast. And so here we go. Because the government provided financial incentives for states to change child welfare policies and attempt to move children out of foster care and encourage permanent placement through reunification and adoption. Now, this is going to be okay for a second. That sounds great, and it is great. It's a good idea, obviously, to reunify a family. to adopt a family, adopt a child into a family. And it also says the policy was influenced by the theory that disruption of the parent-child relationship caused a great deal of emotional damage. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. That if you split up a parent and their child, that's going to cause a great deal of emotional damage. We deal with it every day, today, right? Our people deal with that every day to this day, right? We talked about it earlier, CPS and stuff like that. All right. So therefore, the policy encouraged permanent placement with the family, either biological or adoptive, as opposed to the child becoming, quote, trapped in the system and spending a long period of time in foster care. That all sounds great, right? Absolutely. Because it's with this emphasis on family preservation. The act at the time made kinship foster care a viable addition to the child welfare system. The court ruled that kin uh, were able to or entitled to receive the same federal support for foster care as non-kin fosters. So that what that means is, at the time, somebody in your family, your cousin, your nephew, niece, whatever, they find themselves an orphan, you can go through the court system and adopt the child into your family and then receive benefits. That sounds great. Our oppressor is a diabolical beast. Says there was also evidence that the sense of family identity, self-esteem, social status, community ties, and the continuity of family relationships and kinship arrangements was important to a child. This is stuff that this is not rocket science, right? Who who would agree with that even without me reading that? I think that's pretty much common sense that, all of those wonderful things, self-esteem, family identity, social status, communities, continuity of family relationship. Yeah, all that's important to a child. What's another word for that just wraps up all of that? It's in there a few times, but you don't even need to break all that down. All of that describes what? What does all of those things just describe? You could sum it up in one word. Who wants to give it a shot? I'm gonna read it one more time. I'm gonna edit it a little bit. That way I don't completely get out the name. So the sense of identity, self-esteem, social status, communities, and continuity of relationships. You want to give it a shot. What can you? How can you sum all that up? And think about what we're the context that we're speaking in. If you are an orphan and you have or you find a sense of identity, self-esteem, social status, community, and continuity of relationships, what have you found? Young black youth, not quite. Give Officer Yagadar a hand. He just found a damn family. That's it. That's why this doesn't take rockets. I like this whole thing that there's evidence that state, man, whatever. Every child needs a family. It's not rocket science. You didn't need to study for this, but apparently the oppressor did. Apparently the oppressor needed evidence that our children, specifically our children, benefited from having a family. Now, mind you, they had orphanages set up where people could come and adopt their children all day long. They're immigrant children who came across the water from Europe, but they needed evidence that it was beneficial for our children to have a family. Diabolical. Because the child welfare system therefore determined that children do better with their own families, and that placement of with kin should be given priority when possible. Well, look at that. Look at that. That is amazing. Who knew that children grew up better with their own families? Who knew? Let's keep going. Uh, Says their services included instituting a plan of positive parent-child interaction and problem solving within the home, as well as ensuring the basic needs such as get to the next page, adequate food, safe housing, and paid utilities have been met. How does anybody feel? How does everybody feel about that? That sounds great, right? Let me read that again. It said their services included instituting a plan of positive parent-child interaction and problem solving within the home, as well as ensuring the basic needs such as adequate food, safe housing, and paid utilities have been met. Kind of like, does that sound good or no? Let me rephrase that. Kind of like, does that sound like uh, benefits worth receiving? All right. Sister said they don't see us as humans capable of doing these things on our own. All right. Kind of like, does this sound like something that's worth receiving? These benefits. Okay. Oh, so Yagadar said calm. All right. And Rib said calm because they have embedded a broken system. Anybody else want to give it a shot? All right, no sweat. We're gonna keep going. So, got another question. So it's con. It's worth benefits worth receiving. All right. So I'm gonna read this again. Officer Yakadaf said they trip you and blame you for being on the floor and swoop in like heroes to offer you a hand to get help. It's an interesting analogy. All right. Matter of fact, I'm gonna leave that up there. I'm gonna read this again. It says their services included instituting a plan of positive parent-child interaction and problem solving within the home, as well as ensuring that basic needs such as adequate food, safe housing, and paid utilities had been met. Now, this is my question. All right. What happens when they determine that their plan didn't work? What happens when they determine that there's not positive parent child interaction and problem solving within the home, which means they have to come in your home? What happens when they determine that basic needs such as food, safe housing, and paid utilities have not been met? Get a sister a hand. My rib said it gives them a reason to be in the home and gives them a reason to take our children. The next sentence of this article says termination of parental rights was only allowed when the state's quote unquote reasonable efforts to preserve the family structure failed. Give Officer Yagadar a hand. They say Negroes are helpless. Now they take away our children. Give Sister Tawana a hand. They take your children out of your home. Remember Officer Yagadar. Somali Yahweh Shamal done by Shemi Ashasi. She says that children child welfare comes in. Exactly. Exactly. The next sentence, termination of parental rights was allowed only when the state's reasonable efforts, quote unquote reasonable efforts to preserve a family structure failed. This is the first time in this article where it talks about family termination of parental rights. Right after it talks about the wonderful services that are going to be provided. Diabolical. I'm gonna use that word a lot tonight. Because also initially the act that was put in place was a success, with the foster care population decreasing over 50% between 1980 and 1982. And as y'all can see, this is not that long ago. All right. It says the decrease came right before a period in our history, and then it had more than doubled by 1998. What happened between 1982 and 1998? Several things happened, but give me some examples. We're talking about the black community, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, honestly. Get a sister a hand, the war on drugs. Get a sister a hand, crack. Get a sister another hand, crack. Get a sister a hand, homelessness. What else? There's another one specifically. So far, y'all hit all but one. Matter of fact, you could put a couple of these in there. There's matter of fact, y'all, there's more that could be named that aren't even in this. Right, exactly. Give Sister Tawana a hand. Single mother household began to creep up at an alarming rate. What war are you talking about, sis? Oh, you did have the Desert Storm War, I think, between them, between those times. Uh, so that's not wrong. And y'all, some of y'all may not be old enough to remember. I don't know. I got a couple. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I missed that one. Exactly. HIV and AIDS was running rampant in our community. There's some more. Um, LGBTQ stuff, maybe a little bit, but not. I mean, it didn't take off at that point. Not that I'm familiar with. I don't know where anybody else was, but excuse me, everywhere I went, it was still, you had to be back there with that. That's more of, I think, of a new millennium type thing now. It's just to send less letters. Okay, all right, I'll take that. It wasn't as many letters back then. You're absolutely right. There's one more though. There's one more in the Black and Hispanic community associated with crack, predominantly associated with crack, but not solely associated with crack. But who else? I mean, who else gonna give me one? Boom, Sister Nah got it. Gang members. And Rev said gangs, right? That's when that the drugs flooded our communities, and we began to completely murder each other. Now, I'm gonna put this one up there. I hate this term though. I'm gonna put it up there because it's not wrong. But I hate this term, black on black crime. I hate it. I'm gonna tell y'all why I hate it. Because nobody ever talk about white on white crime, but they kill each other too. Anyway, I mean unalive. I'm gonna get beat up. I mean I'm gonna get checked later on tonight. Salaki, Khan, they destroyed the village. Absolutely destroyed the village. Absolutely destroyed the village between drugs, between HIV, homelessness, uh, all the gang related drug incidents. Everybody's shooting up everybody over money and dope. They completely destroyed our communities. Now, think about when this happened. Prior to, we talked about it before, prior to the civil rights movement, right? Although they were actively trying to prevent us from buying homes and doing things like that to benefit ourselves financially. The approval rates were higher than they were I mean, they were higher in 1960 than they were, I think, in like 1990 something, whatever that date was, I guess. So we were doing better. We were doing better as family units before integration. We had the highest rate of marriages in our communities before integration. Integration happened in the late 60s. I want to say 68, 67, 68. 30 years later, we have homelessness, the war on drugs, rampant HIV and STDs, and our brothers are gunning each other down at alarming rates. 30 years later, after we joined ourselves with this wicked, diabolical oppressor. All right, let's keep going. Um, One and double 1988. Now, so again, the suppressor is a subtile beast, as the Bible says. So think through this now. Walk with me. First, foster care, the need for foster care and services dropped. Then it more than doubled. So now it's worse than when it was when this act was first put in place. This is the same act where they're trying to work with families and get families back together, reunite them, so on and so forth, all that wonderful stuff where, hey, maybe kids do better with families. So things started getting better, then our communities were destroyed and they got worse, right? What does that do from a cost perspective? What does that do from a cost perspective? Now that the need is more than doubled from what it was, from what it once was. All right. So we were saying that the act that they initially put in place where it was working on trying to get, because it's like my rep asked me to repeat it. We were talking about the act that was put in place when they were trying to address orphans and foster care and keep families together and reunite families. And they were saying how it was so amazing that, wow, children do better when they got families and they have a sense of belonging and all that wonderful stuff, right? And it started getting better. Matter of fact, I'll just read it again. It says, although the act initially was a success, with the foster care population decreasing by over 50% between 1980 and 1982, the decrease came right before a period in our history, and this is what I left out to get y'all to. Oh, no sweats. That yeah, I'm going into it now. Um, I left out to see if y'all would get catch it. It says the decrease came right before a period in our history when homelessness, substance abuse, and HIV began to overwhelm the country. Again, it didn't go into gang violence and things of that nature, but that's what happened in our communities in addition to all these things. It says by 1983, the foster care population began to rise, and by 1998, it had more than doubled. All right. So think about where by 1998, the need has more than doubled. What does that do from a cost perspective? Meaning the increase, sis, is that what you're saying? The increase was due to crack? Absolutely. In addition to everything else that went through our community. But we're going to get into some of the specifics of that too. But you're absolutely right. Crack devastated our communities. And again, it was a purposeful act. It was allowed to happen very, very easily. Okay, no sweat, sis. Absolutely. And my rep says a cost increase. All right. Sister Tawana says they were able to profit greatly off of children. Okay. Um, yes and no, Sister Tawana. Yes and no. But let's get into it. All right. It says expenditures for social service programs increased dramatically. So yes, costs increased. So when you say Sister Tawana, they were able to profit greatly off children, off the programs, yes. I mean, yes, because they were able to pull in more money. Um, and the government, I mean, they love taking everybody's money. So I mean, it is what it is. But but that then, as we're going to see in a second, flipped. All right. It says, frustrated with the increasing economic and social costs of the welfare system, the company deemed efforts, including child welfare policies like the one that was put in place to keep families together and all that good stuff, as failures. So by the time these numbers started creeping up, costs started creeping up. Yes, there was plenty of money made. But at some point, they decided, you know what? These programs have failed. Now, give me a quick counter. Who has heard? You got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Who's heard that? Right. Officer Yagadara says con. Sister Nine says con. Sister Tawana says con. Officer Yagadara's rib says con. Right. We've all heard that. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. So now that that program had been deemed a failure, it says tensions grew as the political tide quickly began to turn. See, it says they also help people to take our children while monies to help the families diminish. They also help. I'm not sure what you're saying. They also pay people to take our children while monies to help. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, they pay people to come in and their job, well, you're getting ahead of me. They take people to come in and their job is to essentially find reasons to remove children, and at the same time, they're giving less support. You're getting ahead of me. I shouldn't have put your comment up there. That's all right. You did a good job. All right. It says, yeah, tensions grew as the political tide was quickly turning and individual responsibility became the prevailing political value, replacing the idea of social responsibility. So now it's not about taking care of each other. It's about you got to take care of yourself, or you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. That's when this stuff started. I mean, it was always there, but that's when it kind of took hold and became a major talking point. It says, in the general welfare arena, politicians vehemently attacked public assistance programs. I like that word. Let's look that word up real quick. Vehemently. If y'all know what it is, y'all put it in the chat real quick. I'm gonna look it up. I think I know, but I don't want to be wrong. It says marked by forceful energy, intensely emotional, deeply felt, forcibly expressed, vehemently. They vehemently attacked public assistance programs, and their attacks included a very strong racial element. Aggressively, con. It's another good way to say it. Yep. They aggressively attacked these public social assistance programs, and their attacks were very strong. They had very strong racial element. Says they proliferated the racist notion that black people were. I just want to, I know y'all gonna get it. Adamantly, that's another good way to say it. Say it, con. That black people were living off the system. I was gonna try to get away, figure out a way for y'all to guess it. But that's all right. But that's what became the message that black people were living off the system. What some ways that they presented us as living off the system of welfare? Con, there were too many of us getting help, right? That was one way. What's another way? That they presented us as living off the system. What's some phrases? What were some um, what's the word I'm looking for? There were some phrases that might have been used. There were some images that might have been kind of proliferated. Um, there were some general themes that oftentimes news outlets would use to present us in a certain way. Y'all are on it tonight. Give officer. Oh, let me make sure I get it right. Give Officer Yagada a hand. That called out women welfare queens. Right. It was Sister Tawana a hand. They presented us as being lazy. Officer Yagada. They called us leeches. I got you, Sister Tawana. Don't even worry about it. No sweat. Rib Officer Yagada Khan. Welfare queens. Hmm. My river hand. They depicted us as using food stamps, but using our money to buy drugs and alcohol. All good answers. All good answers. Everybody give themselves a hand. It says they depict us as living off the system. Images of black of this is literally in the article. Images of the black welfare queen. Give Officer Yagada and his rib another hand. They hit it absolutely the nail on the head. Um, and the black crack addicted mother spread throughout the media. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Says these images supported the position that assistance programs were not helping people in need to rehabilitate themselves. They were providing a means for poor blacks to continue their destructive lifestyle. All purposeful and diabolical. So you remove crack babies all over the TV, all over the TV. Listen, in the 80s and 90s, you'd have thought every child that was born that was black was on crack. That's what was presented. You'd have thought every child that was born was on crack, every black man sold crack, and every black woman smoked it. That was their concerted effort, all in an attempt to paint us as though we were taking advantage of benefits. When the reality is, they put us in a situation to need these benefits. In a lot of ways, they put us in these positions. Now, don't get me wrong. We completely understand here in the UPK. Listen, we shouldn't have been taking them. We shouldn't have been taking them because we should have stuck together, which would have kept our families and our communities safer. We should have been following these laws, statutes, and commandments, which would have also been keeping our communities safer. We would have been dealing with each other appropriately, and we'd have had strong unity and strong community. And all we would have needed this oppressor to do is leave us the hell alone. Let me see. Race to having more kids while unable to provide for the first ones. Right. That was the presentation, so we could get checks. And then Maury came out. Maury's a whole nother situation. Because listen, I don't know if I'm getting to that tonight. We got to come back to these law, statutes, and commandments. You said our hoods was on TV looking like a war zone. Get a sister hand. Absolutely. These are all the things that the media portrayed in an effort to now remove the quote unquote benefits that they provided us when all we needed was just to be left the hell alone. Leave us alone. Allow us to have our own community. Come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. And mind you, like almost every other no, not almost every other culture who comes from Europe, even over in Asia, they got all their cultures. They have their cultures. No problem. Nobody bothers. Little Italy, Chinatown. What's some more? Oh, the so-called Jewish man got his whole community by himself. Amish people are the same way. I mean, everybody has their own communities. So-called Koreans, Chinese people, they all have their own communities. But when we want to have our own communities, well, they got a problem with it. Now we're not assimilating to America. Nobody else does it. The Irish keep their culture. The Polish keep their culture. Germans keep. Everybody keeps their culture when they come over here. Black Hispanics and Native Indians. No, if you want to do that, then you're a problem. If we want to do that, we're a problem. Now the reality is, we would be a problem, and that's a good thing. Damn it, we would be a problem because we would have the Most High back on our side, and that's not going to work out well for these other nations. And it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Get in the ISUPK and be up under this umbrella. Be up under the Most High's protection. Endure till the end. Fight your demons. Let me see. Officer Yagadash says they dropped bombs on our black Wall Streets, then copied and made them their own. Right. Con. Oh, not real my hand. Right. Now we're the hate group. We're the hate group for what we say. We speak, and we're a hate group. They kill and murder they unalive everything on the planet. If you touch one of them, you touch them towers, millions will pay for it. But we're the hate group. We can't have our own communities because they're destroyed historically and currently today. But we're the hate group. We're teaching our people to love each other and follow the Most High. And we're the hate group. Complete nonsense. Let's keep going. Um, all of those presentations of us as as these crack babies, crack queens, and all that stuff, right? All that media frenzy that presented us as leeching, as Officer Yagadar said, off of the government. It says political transformation and this political transformation and desire to decrease the reliance on welfare programs swept the country. It worked. All of these Edomites decided, you know what? They're right. All these black people are terrible. Give Officer Yagadar a hand. We built the country, but Negroes are lazy. Esau sexually harassed, sexually assaulted everyone. People's animals, but Hispanics are called rapists. Con. Exactly. Exactly. I'm gonna give you another one. They say, well, so-called Mexicans are bringing over drugs. Guess what Mexicans think about the majority of people here? Who, who can answer my question? If If Esau thinks Mexicans are drug dealers and running all the drugs over here, what do so-called Mexicans think about America? All right, I want to answer. Let's see if I can get another one. Who else want to give it a shot? Who else want to give it a shot? I'm gonna repeat it. So, so-called Esau, our oppressor, likes to say that Mexicans are drug dealers and rapists because of the cartels and so on and so forth when they're bringing drugs over and so on and so forth, right? So if our oppressor views our brothers Issachar as drug dealers, how does Issachar look at America? All right, I'm not saying you're wrong. Let me see. I'm gonna give to y'all probably for the sake of time. All right. That's not a wrong answer. That they're weak. Mexicans think them that are born here are better than the ones born in Mexico. That may be absolutely true. I'm not saying that's wrong either. That's not where I was going. But I think you're absolutely right. Uh, give my rib a hand. So listen, he said drug dealers and pushers. If 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 Johnny is the biggest drug dealer in all of Richmond, he is selling more dope than he can get his hands on, right? And the police come and say, man, or even the community, let's not say the police because they got, means to take it down. But let's say the community comes and somebody in the community says, you are selling too many drugs to all these people. And Johnny might reply and say, hey, man, y'all the ones buying all the dope. No, it's not right, right? Especially in our communities. That is absolutely wrong. But the reality is, Esau wants to call our Mexican brothers dope dealers. The reality is, and we're coming to find out more and more now, because there's a quote unquote opioid epidemic, America is full of junkies. And if they weren't full of junkies, then guess what? There would be no drugs to sell. You never have to worry about anybody saying the ISUPK is full of junkies because we don't buy dope. We don't do dope. We don't get high. So it's so interesting how you absolutely right, Officer Yagadar. Esau again, he be playing Jedi mind tricks on the world and even our people. He plays Jedi mind tricks and it's amazing. Supply and demand, absolutely. If there was no demand, there would be no reason to supply it here. This wicked kingdom is full of junkies. Everybody wants to get high. Everybody getting high, unless you're an ISUPK. All right. It says, so that act was looked at as it failed. So then another 1996, the Welfare Reform Act came along. Like, hold on one second. Salaki. All right. So the 1996 uh, Welfare Reform Act was put in place because they said the other one failed, right? So then it says, although the Welfare Reform Act was created to drastically cut social welfare expenditures, it left entitlements for foster care and adoption assistance uncapped. Who can tell me why? Now, mind you, I'm gonna read that again. Damn right. My man, diabolical. Damn right. So it says, matter of fact, I'm gonna start a sentence up. It says the political transformation and desire to decrease reliance on welfare programs swept the country. So they convinced everybody that we was the ones taking advantage of all the services, and we want nothing but a bunch of drug addicts, so on and so forth, right? And then it says, and then in 1996, the Welfare Reform Act happened. Said also, although the Welfare Reform Act was created to drastically cut social welfare expenditures, it left entitlements for foster care and adoptive assistance programs uncapped. It had no cap for foster care and adoption programs. Why is that? Now, think about this by comparison to the previous act that we talked about. The previous act was to work to keep families together and keep them unified and reunify families and have family members adopt them and their kin and stuff like that. And then it was determined that that was a failure. It was costing too much money. So then they put a new act in place that had no cap. They put a new act in place that had no cap on the cost for foster care and adoption assistance program. Because that's the money maker and they can break our homes more. Give her a hand. Officer Yagadar said an incentive to take the kids in this loophole. It's like and steal money. Give them a hand. Hmm. Okay. State gets to cut two now on funding like child support. All right. Taking our children to abuse and embed manipulative beliefs. All great answers. All great answers. Says here the increasingly pervasive belief was that it was better to place children out of the home instead of working to correct the social ills that required the state to intrude in the home in the first place. Meaning, it's easier for me to just take your kid rather than try to give you any real help. Because the real help is just costing me too much as the government. That's the idea. We just spending too much money on helping you. So we're just gonna take your kid because that's cheaper. Essentially. Essentially. This is costing my taxpayers too much, and I've convinced them. I've convinced all these oppressors that you're the one getting all the benefits anyway, and they ain't ready to pay for that no more. So we're just gonna take your kids. It's easier for us to do that. More cost effective. It's a business decision. Um, I don't know about that. Only reason I don't know about that is because these celebrities, the sister said, that's why it became a thing for celebrities to adopt black babies. The only thing is they don't adopt no black babies here. They go over to get them Hamites. They don't do that. They don't be, as far as I know. Maybe somebody can correct me. I think the majority of them celebrities they go over and get them Hamite babies. I still, whatever. I ain't got nothing to do with that. But it definitely ain't the benefit. That's as far as I know. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Give me one of them celebrities who have taken a bunch of ours off the streets, and I will absolutely concede. Um, okay, yeah, no sweat. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think most of that's them Hamites, and I think all that's political so they can look good. They don't really care. As far as I'm concerned, they don't care about mine anyway, so I don't really care about that. So yeah, it says goes on. It says Newt Gingrich. Y'all may be familiar with Newt Gingrich if y'all at all familiar with politics. It says Newt Gingrich, the Republican Speaker of the House at the time, and this is back in '96, I think it was. Yes, '96. Um, he was the Speaker of the House at the time, echoed this sentiment when he argued that government funds going to children born to welfare mothers should be diverted to programs that would put their babies up for adoption or place them in orphanages. You are absolutely right, Iwan. He's about the only one though, right? Cat William adopt black babies. Kind of a car. I think the last time I heard he had about 6 or 7 of them. I believe something like that, maybe 5 either way. He about the only one I know of too. I don't know of any more that do that. All them celebrities they typically go get them Hamite babies and I think they do it for to look like they helping people, but whatever. Um, yeah, that's absolutely not the case. But uh, yeah, the Speaker of the House, he argued that government funds going to children born to welfare mothers should be diverted to programs that put their babies up for adoption or place them in orphanages. And again, we talked about it earlier, where there was a concerted effort not only uh, to keep us as black and brown people from building any type of any type of generational wealth. That was a concerted effort. And then over time, after we integrated our communities where we were building some kind of community and solidarity, and that dollar was circling around and we were benefiting and we had Black Wall Street and things of that nature, those were destroyed and or abandoned after integration happened. And then once they were abandoned or destroyed, drugs pumped in, homelessness, HIV ran through. And then after all of that, I say, you know what? These folks benefiting too much. Let's just take their children. It's better to take their children than to help them. That's this country's disposition towards blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. It's better to take their children than to provide any assistance because whatever situation they're in, it's their fault. Completely ignoring all of the wickedness that they have done to us for generations and continue to do. These are not old numbers. And we haven't even gotten into the next act that came about in 1997. Deuteronomy 28 and 32, I believe it is. Oh, okay. So what? I didn't even realize that. I don't want tax breaks for helping Africa. Well, damn. Tax breaks for helping Hamites, but they don't obviously ain't getting enough for helping Israelites. It's all about, listen, and we're going to get into it, Lord willing, next week. This country is about making money, and it's on the backs of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians so much more, so often, almost all the time, historically, currently. It is about making money. And we are always the nation that is completely taken advantage of because we don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments, and we don't have the Most High's protection. Again, all of these other nations, they are aligned with their religions that they're supposed to be. That pagan religion of Christianity, that's for our oppressor. Have it. Our people, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, come out of that. Come out of that. That is helping to destroy your nation. And because we don't follow the laws, we have strong women having babies without being able to identify a father. So she can't get assistance. And now she is broken only for the system to take her kid. Come, come. Now, the reality is if we followed the law, statutes, and commandments collectively, we wouldn't need the assistance. We absolutely wouldn't need the assistance. The idea of a single mother wouldn't be a thing anymore. It wouldn't exist if we all followed the law, statutes, and commandments. It wouldn't be a thing if we got back to these laws. But because we got away from it, because we aligned ourselves with this wicked oppressor, because our women fell for the feminist movement, because our women wanted these benefits of these social programs. So it took the man out of the home. All of these things are why our families were destroyed. And they continue to be destroyed. Like I said, Lord willing, next week we're going to get into it. Last thing I'm going to say, and we're going to probably start with the scripture next week, is Deuteronomy 28 and 32. And we've been leading up to this the whole time. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. That is the breakdown of the black family. That is part of the breakdown of the black family. Taking our children out of the home and giving them to someone else. It happened during slavery. It's happening now. CPS, 85,000 of our Latino brothers and sisters, their children were in dog cages, separated from their parents, will never see them again. These things were prophesied in the Bible, and that's how we know we are the children of Israel. Go on. It says, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. This is what happens when our children are ripped from us, when our families are completely destroyed. Our eyes long for them. You hope to see them walking back in. You hope to hear mommy, daddy one more time. And our eyes fail because we will never see him again. It says, and there shall be no might in thine hands, Laki. We were just talking about how not engaging, but allowing, being receptive to these benefits put us in a position where they would terminate our rights as a parent. This is now. This is not 100 years ago. This is not 150 years ago. This is not even 50 years ago. These things are happening now. These prophecies are coming true now. Come to Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge so you can understand how to prevent them. So you can get on the side of the war, the right side of the war that's going on. With that, I say Shalom, Yahweh Shem Shabrakatah, Salaki, Yahweh Shem Shabakathon to the brothers. Shalom, Yahweh Shemar Alatan, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah to the sisters. Class dismissed.